Hey everybody, this is Ryan Deal again with 605 Sports and John Akre with 605 Sports to do one more round of these of one more video, I guess, before the state football championship games kick off in Vermillion. Seems like the season goes pretty fast, especially once we get into the later stages and everything. John, what are your impressions of the games as we head to the dome and everything?
Well, yeah, certainly some of these games are sort of expected either rematches or sort of expected championship matches, first time playing against each other, things of that nature. But overall, I think these are seven really good state championship matchups. I don't really know if there's any particular one that you can point out and be like, well, that one's going to be, obviously one way or the other. But I honestly think all of these are going to be some interesting games.
Yep, absolutely. And as always, follow along on 605sports.com and your social media platforms for all the content that we will be producing over the next few days and everything. All right, 11 AAA, which will be a theme with these big classes. It's going to be a rematch. We got Brandon Valley facing Sioux Falls Lincoln. Not only a rematch of a regular season game, but a rematch of last year's state championship. So obviously, two teams, two programs, close in proximity, very familiar with each other. That always adds a fun, interesting layer for the game and everything. This year, early in the season, uh, Brandon Valley beat Lincoln 35-30 in a game that went right down to the wire. If we get a similar type of a game down at the Dakota Dome, that'd be awesome. John, what really stands out to you in this one?
Well, yeah, like you mentioned, um, Brandon Valley beat them earlier this year. These two teams have kind of been going back and forth these last two seasons now, just knocking each other off. But Lincoln's trying to go for a three-peat, so that'll be, I mean, a big game in general just to try and seal that three-peat off. It's going to be interesting because it's kind of a tale of the unstoppable force meets the immovable object, kind of with Lincoln's offense averaging over 51 points per game, 50 points per game. Brandon Valley only averaging 12 points per game allowed. And then obviously you saw earlier this season, 30 to 35 or 35 to 30 final. Brandon Valley is going to have to probably find a way to maybe slow down that offense a little bit more. But right now, with what Brody Schaefer's got rolling with that offense and what he ran for over 300 yards in the semis against Jefferson, I mean that's going to be a tough offense to kind of slow down. But overall, I mean, I think these two teams are kind of the clear two best in 11 AAA. So I mean, what better way to end the year for that class with those two teams in the state championship?
Yeah, Brody Schaefer. We should also mention fresh off an offer from the South Dakota State University football team. So it goes to show you the caliber of player he is. And then on the other side, Brandon Valley has Hudson Parliament, offensive lineman that's committed to the University of Iowa. So Class 11 AAA always produces some quality athletes. So there'll be some more quality athletes out on the field for that one. 11 double A, here we go again. The peer governors have made their reservations for Vermillion again, ninth year in a row, I believe, if memory serves. They've gone down there as the favorite, the number one seed kind of in years past, and this year a little bit different role. The three seed went on the road last week and beat Huron, the number two seed, to make it back to Vermillion, and they will play Yankton. And again, rematch of a game earlier this season. Yankton won that one 35 to 28. Yankton, their first trip since 2023. And of course, they lost to Pierre. So again, a lot of familiarity with these teams, with being their conference opponents and everything. Are we surprised that Pierre's back in the dome, I guess, John?
No, and I think it's just been made apparent the last decade now that if you want to win a title in 11 AA, you got to beat Pierre at some point. And obviously Yankton's already done that. So that just kind of makes it a little more difficult now having to try and do it twice in one season. But it's a little different where it just kind of feels like Pierre's coming in with more of a chip on their shoulder as opposed to being, oh, they're the heavy favorites. It's their championship to lose. Because they have 3 losses on the year now, so they're obviously not just that clear heavy favorite, but it's just one of those teams that you just really don't want to see in the Dakota Dome in November. So Yankton's going to have obviously a lot on their plate with them, and it was a close matchup last time. So excited to see how this one goes.
Yeah, and then Pierre made it last year, lost to Watertown in a game that went right down to the wire. Pierre scores a 2-point conversion. They are state champs again. So now, like you said, coming in with a chip on their shoulder, want to put those bad memories of last year's state championship loss, to bed and everything, and finish the job this year. 11A again, familiarity again. Sioux Falls Christian and Lennox playing in the state championship. Played last year in the state championship. Played early in the season. Sioux Falls Christian. This feels like this might be kind of theirs to lose this year. Like I said a couple times during the season, they have not won a Class 11A state championship. Obviously, want to cross that off the list. What really stands out to you in this 11A championship?
Well, again, it's just kind of that deja vu of same teams from last year, and it's also just kind of that where Sioux Falls Christian goes in as a heavy favorite, and then like we know what happened last year, Lennox came in and knocked him off, and kind of I wouldn't say an upset, but just kind of a little bit of a surprise there. So we'll see if the Orioles can come in and do it again, but it's kind of feeling like a little bit of a different Sioux Falls Christian team this year. Just the way that they've got that defense playing right now, giving up 6 points per game. That's really tough to do in a class that's very, DAC 12 conference driven. And so for them to do that while also averaging on offense 41 points per game, led by a sophomore quarterback, this is a team that's gonna be good for a couple years now. And it's just kind of just getting started with the Chargers. So I'll be excited to see how this one goes.
Yeah. And then Lennox, played Sioux Falls Christian. I believe they're 17-0 scored from the regular season. I believe that was the closest game for Sioux Falls Christian this season. So I don't know if that means anything once we get down there, but hopefully that one will be a good one, like it was last year when Lennox was able to pull that one out. 11B East River meets West River. Elk Point Jefferson against St. Thomas More. For Elk Point Jefferson, this is they're getting used to making that short drive to Vermillion and packing the Dakota Dome. Win a couple years ago, beat Winter in a great game for the state championship, and then next year they lost to Hot Springs in another great game in the 11B state championship. And on the other side of the token, St. Thomas More, it's been a while since they've been there. 2014 was the last time they made it. And as everybody knows, they've gone there 6 times and have not won a state championship. So they're tired of hearing about that and people like you and I talking about it. For 11B, did it kind of feel like 11B is always tough, don't get me wrong, but did it kind of feel like at the end of the day, these were kind of the 2 teams that we were kind of penciling in to make it to Vermillion?
Yeah, and it almost wasn't, right? Because Elk Point Jefferson, they went down to the wire with Dual. If I remember right, Dual had taken a 1-point lead in that fourth quarter. So the Huskies are maybe a little battle tested now. They kind of maybe, I wouldn't say got bored of the season, but just they've been winning so much by so many points that it maybe was just like, well, that was maybe a good win for us to sort of get used to sort of closer games type of thing. But for St. Thomas More, it's just kind of been smooth sailing all season. That's a defense that's only allowing 5 points per game, and they've been firing on all cylinders. And like you mentioned, they're probably hungrier than ever with the record that they have in the Dakota Dome. So, like we mentioned, 11B is always going to be tough. I think this is going to be another really tough matchup to pick.
Yeah. 11B, it just seems like some of those games through the last few years have gone right down to the wire. Even last year with Winter and Sioux Valley, that was a great game. So I don't know if that's what we're going to get in this one. You certainly hope so. So hopefully this one will be another fun one to cover and everything. All right, let's go to the 9-man ranks. 9AA. When these 2 teams played in the regular season, I'm going to say it again. I tweeted, "Sign me up for the rematch." And here we are, Freeman Academy will face Elkton Lake Benton. when they played earlier this season. It was a 42-28 score, I believe it was. But don't let the two touchdown differential throw you off or anything. That game was really back and forth. I think there was just a turnover late by Elkton that ended up kind of being the difference, and Freeman scored, and that was just enough to get past those guys. I think of all of the games, this is the one I'm kind of looking forward to the most, just because I think we're going to see kind of a track meet. Some dynamic quarterbacks and some dynamic playmakers out on the field on both sides and everything. What really stands out to you in this matchup?
I was going to say is just I think a big part of this game is really going to come down to the quarterback play, because I think you arguably have the two best quarterbacks in 9AA football. Obviously, you've got Jackson Wadsworth and whatnot. But I mean, Riley Cheddar and Colt Beck is two of the best quarterbacks in the class, and they're going to be able to go at it one last time here in the Dakota Dome. I think those two and their play is really going to determine this game. And obviously, just like you mentioned, I think it just came down to turnovers in that second half of their first game against each other. But it is interesting, though, to see that it's kind of a year of firsts for both teams with the co-ops. And obviously, you kind of mentioning and have covered Freeman a couple times this year. Elkton, like Benton, and I've talked with Coach Caleb Haas as well. They're hungrier than ever. I mean, this is a team that, two of the last three seasons they had made the semis and lost, and now they're finally in as with a loaded senior class. I mean, those guys want it, and you can just kind of tell with them and how they played. And I mean, they went and played a tough Parkston team. That was a physical game, a defensive driven game, and it took a couple turnovers in the fourth quarter to seal it for them. But this one is the one that's kind of the most intriguing for me for sure.
Yeah. And again, it seems like in the past, the 9AA game has delivered, some great games in recent years. And I just think with that turf field down there in Vermillion, with these high powered offenses, you mentioned the quarterbacks, and there's this great skill guys on both sides. I just think this has all the makings, all the potential to be just a fun game and up and down and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see how that one plays out. 9A, we got another East River versus West River matchup. Howard back in the state championship, won last year's 9A state championship. They're regular contenders in 9-man football and always knocking on the door or winning state championships in Vermillion and everything. And they will face Wall, another team similar to making deep runs in the playoffs and getting to the Dakota Dome. They're not too far removed from winning a state championship. I believe 2022 was the last time that they won one. So certainly have the championship pedigree really on both sides. I think this will be another fun one as well, John. What really stands out to you?
Well, I think it's kind of interesting just how 9A has went this year where, Howard, the defending champs, they lose that first week of the season, and everyone just kind of threw them under the radar as like, oh, they're down this year. But they're still going to find their way to Vermillion, and they did the last week in a tough one without Sister Hudson. But Wall, if you were to sort of pinpoint a team in South Dakota high school football that's been the most dominant, from the start, it's been Wall. This is a team that they have not won a game inside of a 40-point differential all season. I mean, it's been 40 or more. So it's just they're just coming out, punching you in the mouth, and sort of just setting a tone early, and that's just how they've rolled all season. And obviously, it's two teams with a lot of championship pedigree. They've had recent success in the Dakota Dome. I'm not sure this is going to be a physical battle for sure, but I'm not sure how this one's gonna end up.
Yeah, and like we were talking off air, they played not too long ago in the semifinals in a game that was at Howard. I covered that game, and Howard ended up winning, and just a great game, 21-17, some to that effect. So if we as reporters and fans can get something similar to that at the Dakota Dome, that'd be great. So certainly another one that'll be intriguing to keep an eye on. 9B to Rapid St. Mary's and Avon, similar to maybe the 11B. Did this kind of feel like to you at the end of the day, 9B it was going to be St. Mary's and Avon kind of felt like you're on a collision course this year?
Yeah, well, and actually, I mean, you got to give credit to Faulkton area and Coleman Egan. They made, I mean, great, hell of a battle for those two in the semis against St. Mary and Avon. But yeah, I definitely felt like just these two teams were sort of the most consistent teams, top to bottom this season in 9B. But it's interesting just the similarities with those two teams in 9A as well, where it's both teams that are kind of trying to make it back to championships, whether it be defending or not. But St. Mary's, I've kind of been saying they're one of the top teams in 9-man football. I've really liked what I've seen out of them this year. They've just kind of been that machine, high scoring offense. So Avon's going to have their hands full for sure, but they obviously know what it takes to get it done. They did it just 2 years ago. So this one will always be interesting, and the streak of no repeat champion continues with the 9B class.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a stat we like to throw out. We threw out during the season that there's been no repeat in 9B since 03 and 04, and that trend will continue this year as Sully Buttes, which won last year's state championship, lost to Faulkton in the quarterfinal rounds this year's playoffs. So, yep, certainly another fun one to watch will be that 9B one. Like you said, a lot of playmakers really on both sides. So it'll be fun to see how that one plays out. All righty. I think we covered all the games, and again, continue to follow 605 Sports this week for all your coverage of some photos and game stories and some other features and all that kind of stuff. So, John, this was fun as always, and we will see you down at the Dakota Dome.
Absolutely.